Alright, welcome to episode 6. In this episode we are going to cover crown dips. How to put the different colors onto your wood arrows. How to introduce different designs to them. Including how to do a hydro dip over the top of a regular crown. Stay tuned. Okay, we're going to start with the easiest and I think the least expensive method for crown dipping. And honestly, it's one that I use quite often. That's the beauty of the wood arrow, is you don't necessarily need a lot of expensive equipment to start with. So I use a lot of just hobby paint. It's just a basic acrylic paint you can get at your hobby store, either Hobby Lobby, Michael's. I think even Walmart probably carries something like this. I have a variety of colors, and like I pointed out before, I use the little plastic cups quite often so that I can custom mix colors if I need to. The arrows I'm working on right now, the customer is a Clemson Tiger fan, so he wants a orange crown dip, so that's what I have here. Again, it's you can either put it on with a foam brush or with an actual paintbrush. And what I've done is I've taken the arrow and I have marked where I want the end of my crown to go. And you got to kind of play with your paint. Now see, this is actually acting just a little bit thick for my liking. And if it's too thick, then it will leave more texture on there and it doesn't give you a smooth finish. So being that it's acrylic and it's all water-based, I can add just a little bit of water to it. Just a couple of drops there. And what I'm going to do is thin it out. You can actually do this with your brush, or you can put a glove on and mix it in there. And what this does is it helps it... What this does is it thins it out so that it'll lay smooth on the shaft and you don't leave a texture. Now that will give it a different look, so if that's something you can play with. I've actually left them thick on some of them, and it just takes more clear coats over the top to make it smooth out. But it does give it a textured look. It gives it a little bit more of a 3D look, if you will. It'll give your crown some depth. And especially so if you use acrylics to crest with. This is also where on some of mine I'll put a little bit of pearl to make them pop. I'm thinking on this one I probably won't, but you can buy pearl paint, and I'll put a couple drops in there, mix it up. Can't put too much because it'll lighten it up and then it'll look more like a cream colored orange instead of the bright brilliant bright orange that he wants. So same thing with the crown as I did with the stain. I will get a lot of it down on the shaft there, and then I will get my paintbrush close to that color, then I'll just spin the shaft. What that does, you see, it gives me a nice line there, and then I'll come back through with the paintbrush and just paint the shaft up. Now the one thing with the finish that I use, it does yellow the paints, which for your orange, your reds, your blues, your yellows, your greens, it actually enhances them. It really makes them pop. So for these colors, these are the ones that I will paint before. This is just a raw wood shaft. There is no finish on this. All I've done is tapered it, clean sanded, and marked my line. I will go through and do that. Sometimes you'll have to put 2 coats. You're much better off putting a thin coat on there and then coming back and painting over it again, because if you get it on there too thick, you'll leave streaks and it just doesn't look as good. It won't save you any time if you try to go that route. So I'll hang it up to dry. And basically I'll move through all 12. Okay, one thing I want to mention, when you're painting, normally on all the steps I suggest that you wait until it cures and dries. You don't have to on the paint, at least to recoat it with the paint you don't. So this is still kind of wet, but you can see where there's some lighter streaks in it that where the paint didn't get on there real well. So you can paint right over it again. And so what I'll do is I'll paint all 12, and then I'll start right back over before I clean up my brush and before I, dispose of my paint. I will go through and recoat them again. That way, especially when I'm mixing custom colors, I try to mix enough for that batch so that I can keep a consistent color throughout the dozen. Now, if you happen to run out of time, the other nice thing about these little cups is they do make lids for them. So you can put the lid on, and that will help keep your paint for a while. So say something comes up, like especially during school time, I will lose track of time and have to run and go get the kids. If I'm late, I usually get in trouble. So I can put a lid on real quick and go run an errand, go answer a phone call or something, then come back, and that'll keep the paint good. But that's how I put on some of the paint colors on the wood. Okay, so now we're actually going to talk about crown dips, the paint that I actually dip the end of the shafts into. The reason I use the crown dips is because there are some colors that don't do real well being painted on like I showed you before. Mainly like your white is one of the main ones. Pink is another. The finish that I use has a tendency to yellow the paint. And so if I paint it white and then dip into there, it comes out more of a cream color. And that's not what a lot of the customers are looking for. A lot of guys, and myself included, I like a bright white, like an appliance white paint. It shows up really well in all light conditions, and it's something that a lot of people can see. It also matches the feather, the color of the white feathers and the white knocks that are out there. So I actually dip in a paint. The best I have found is made by Boning. It is their Archery lac is my favorite for the white. It covers really well. It's hard and it's consistent, and so far it hasn't let me down. They've recently, this last year in 2017, came out with a new paint called Crest Lac. It has a little less solids in there, so it mixes a lot better from what I understand. I like this for the different colors. The yellows, the bright yellow, the fluorescent yellows, the neon greens. Again, these are all water-based acrylics. They're easy to work with, easy to clean up, and they're compatible with the finish or with the adhesives that I use. So the other nice thing is that you can custom mix them to get different colors, and I've done that in the past. So I put them into these dip tubes like you see here behind me. This is the Little Dipper. These were invented by one of my mentors, Dave Dorn. Honestly, it's the best and easiest tool out there for crown dipping. I use them all the time. When the lids go bad, if you're just using water-based paint, you can just replace them with a regular ball canning lid top is what I've done. When they come brand new, they have a nice white lid, and on the bottom of the lid is a special paper on there that stands up to the old finishes, that the old lacquer finishes, where you can't use your normal canning jar lid because the chemicals in that will eat it. Well, these lids will stand up to that. Since I use all water-based and I don't necessarily have to deal with those chemicals, I can get away with just replacing it with one of the other lids. But that's about the only part that ever wears out. Some of my dip tubes are 10, 15 years old. When they go bad, I dump them out and I clean them. They're pretty easy to clean out and maintain, and then I just, if it really goes bad, I just buy another one. They're really not that expensive. So for crown dipping, when you are going to actually dip in a paint, you don't want to dip on a raw shaft because, again, they're water-based, and when you dip, that paint stays on there, it will soak into your shaft, raise all the grains on there, and it doesn't work. It takes forever to dry. It adds a ton of weight. It doesn't do you any good to put it on first and then have to clear dip over the top, because then again you're going to yellow it. So what I do, I put 3 coats of finish on my arrows first. Okay, I put my mark on there where I want to dip to, and then I will sand lightly. Well, I'll knock the gloss down basically. So I'll take a double-aught steel wool or that green 3M pad that I showed you in the earlier videos, and I will knock the gloss down, and I will give this just a little bit of teeth for the paint to hang on to. So again, you're going to have to test your finishes. If you're using the Dailies Profan that I use, these are all compatible with, and I don't have a problem. I'm not 100% sure with some of the other finishes that are out there, so again, you'll have to play with that. I can't tell you for sure that it'll work, but I know with this setup it does. So I will knock the gloss down, and then I will dip it and hang it, and I'll show you that here next. Okay, so here we go, a little 3M pad. I normally do this outside. I don't like a whole lot of dust around here, but for the video I'll just show you how to do one of them. You just lightly scuff it. Again, all I'm trying to do is take the gloss down and give it just a little bit of teeth for the finish to hold on to. Now, when you're using these paints, you want to be careful not to shake them or introduce a bunch of air bubbles, because you don't want air bubbles in your paint. So I'll put my clip on ahead of time. I will take this and I will stir the paint as I'm going in. And on the first one is where I do a lot of the stirring to get it mixed up. If it's really been sitting for a long time, I have a lot of sacrificial shafts around here that I will stick in here and just stir and get it really stirred up and get that paint. But you can see where I've been dipping in this quite a bit, so that's all I really need. And I'll go down the line, pull it out. Now the thickness you're going to have to play with. There used to be some documentation that would say that if the paint ran for 11 seconds and then turned into a drip, that was the correct thickness. And I believe it was 11 seconds, I'm not sure. Now I just kind of do it by eye, and you can see where it drips off, and then I hang it up and it'll finish dripping. So that's basically how you crowned it. Okay, for our next design, I'll show you. I call it a hydro dip. I don't know if that's the right term, but what it does is it gives the shaft a marbly look. And I call it a hydro dip because I'm actually dipping it in water. So what we do is we already have our arrow crown dipped in whatever your background color of your choice. So this one I'm going to do white. I'm going to split the crown on this one, so instead of dipping the whole thing, I'm only going to dip half. The whole theory behind this is that we got a container of water. I'm using just a ball canning jar here. If I'm going to do the whole thing, I will use like a big flower vase. I put just normal tap water in there, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some enamel in there. You want a paint that will not mix with the water, so you can't use the water-based acrylic. It won't work. It'll just dilute in the water and it won't attach. So what I'm going to do, this is orange. I'm going to go ahead and mix it up a little bit so I get a good consistency in the color throughout the process, because you will have to add paint as you go through this. And what I want to do is drop 1, 2. I usually go about 3 drops in there. Actually, we'll go 4 on this one. And then mix it up. What it'll do is it'll kind of separate and leave like little lines. And if you've ever seen like oil mixed in water, that's what it's doing. So I'll do that. Again, I put paper down so I don't make too big of a mess. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my arrow, I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to turn it And I'm also turning the arrow down to my line. And then as I come back up, well, that one didn't work the way I wanted it. There it goes. See how it's kind of grabbing on? It'll go down to the bottom. After you do one, you got to add more paint, because you want to get enough in there. So throughout the process, you'll add more paint. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you even have to change out your water. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I do one of my most popular designs. I still haven't really grown up. I like to finger paint. This is how I put the swirls on the arrows, and you can do it either with stain, which is what I'm going to use right now, that gel stain that I showed you in the earlier video, or with paint. Basically, all you do is get your arrow. This already has finish applied. And I use gloves and get it on my fingers. Put it on there. And you twist it. Hopefully this isn't a letdown to some folks who have had a lot of questions on how to do this. And the more you put on, the easier it'll glide on your hands. Just like that. You're going to want to let this dry for 8 hours, I'd say. This is all my dry times that I tell you guys. It depends on the humidity, temperature, time of year. I mean, during the summer, like in August, when it's really hot and warm around here, these things will dry in 4 hours. Right now, it's actually New Year's Day, so Happy New Year, Happy 2018. It's going to take 12. I won't touch these today. I won't work on these till tomorrow or the next day when I apply the crest. Okay, hold on just a second. I know this has been a long episode. I apologize for that. I think the last 2 episodes when I started this, I said I was going to make 7 to 10 minutes, but it's just not enough time to pack in all the information I've been trying to share with you. So, I really appreciate you hanging out with me till the end. Hopefully you're finding this stuff informative, but I want to do a giveaway for those guys who watch this all the way to the end. So, give me a like and a subscribe. Leave a comment down below. And I'm going to let this go till January, the end of January of 2018. I will then pick a winner out of those that leave the comment down below. Let me know what color and size of shirt you want. I'm going to give away a free shirt. Dick Archery shirt. These are available on the website, but I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and interacting with me. So again, leave a comment. Let me know what you like about the series so far, and then if you have any questions, once I get enough questions, I will do kind of a question and answer session if I don't answer the questions through the upcoming videos. So I know somebody asked me a question about feathers, right wing versus left wing. We're going to cover that in the fletching segment coming up here in a couple episodes. So again, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate you guys watching and interacting with me. And I hope you're having as much fun with the series as I am. Thanks.